I think I can just about call you a long-time friend because we've known each other a few years.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we met in the Philippines at an event called Tropical Think Tank. Um, and Azul has gone on to achieve magnanimous, I don't even know if that's the right word,
That is a great word.
magnificent things in life. And he's now a coach to some of the leading leaders and authors in the world. Is that like, does that sound
Yeah,
just about right?
yeah, it sounds right. Sort of humbling, but that is true.
It is true, exactly. And we reconnected, I think, a couple of months ago because I'm now writing my second major book. And Azul is just like, he's so busy and has so many important people, to coach and to spend time with. And he offered to read a chapter of my book and give me some feedback. And then COVID-19 happened, so I don't think we've reconnected since then. But
Mm.
yeah, so it's been quite the whirlwind couple of months, hasn't it? How's things for you?
You know, I'm fortunate enough to have my health. I wish much safety and health to those who have challenging situations. Um, and as well, I make my living working online, coaching people from all over the world. So my day to day feels similar, except for the fact that I cook a lot more than I did at home. And I don't get to see my children who are in another state because we can't travel in state between states. But um, it's really it really makes you think about being right here in this moment because this is
Mm,
the only moment we have, and so it's really helped me become more grounded and um, thoughtful about what do I really want out of each day.
yeah, that's so true. So tell me, Azul, before all this went down, before you knew about the pandemic, what was life like for you and what was important to you at that time?
Honestly, we had just finished our first big 3-day event in San
Yeah.
Diego, where we had authors and people come from all over the world. Chris Ducker actually was there. Pat Flynn was there. It was quite an event. It was our first big event. So before it all, we were thinking, gosh, we need to do these more often, different parts of the country, maybe different parts go to Europe. So we were thinking that this is so wonderful because we spent so much time working virtually that it was an incredible transition. So my mind was not thinking that this would change. So that has been a big shift in us. But other than that, most of my life has been similar. The other thing that's changed is we spend a great deal of our time, my husband and I, traveling. So we were nomads traveling around different parts. We just moved to Austin, Texas in January, right before our big event.
Mm,
But we lived in Puerto Rico for a while on the beach. We live in Portugal where we have a home, and we can't go there. We can't do these things that we're used to doing. So like life has shifted. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's just different than it was. But definitely we weren't homebodies, and now we are.
yeah. So what have you noticed inside yourselves? Like, what has shifted for you in terms of how you think about day-to-day life and what really matters to you at the moment?
You know what? I realized if I want to sleep in, I just sleep in. I, I
I love
realized
that.
this like, where am I going in any hurry? Like I could adjust my schedule and meet with people later. If I want to enjoy a day where I just read or spend the day cooking, I bought 50 pounds of flour. So I've been baking a lot. I was like, I don't need to be eating this much baked goods, but I was like, but this is the moment I have. So I've actually spent a lot of time in quiet reflection. I've been more consistent with my meditation. The thing
Mm,
that's really helpful is I'm connecting with friends that I haven't talked to in a while because I'm really wondering genuinely how they're doing. Because
yeah.
everyone all over the world is impacted in every corner of the globe. So we're all experiencing very similar things, just different versions of it. So I've spent more time talking to people that I've missed and probably should have connected with earlier. So there's a lot of that. And I still have to continue to coach authors who are writing books and keep them motivated and excited because they're having external pressures of like, what's going on in my world, my life, my job, my family.
Yes.
And I still have to help them say, yes, and let's get some words on the page. So that's still, my work is still requiring me to show up every day, but with more intention, I think.
So what does that look like, having more intention?
So, for example, I did another podcast interview today with the best-selling author. Her name is Carol Klein, who worked with another best-selling author named Gay Hendricks on a new book called Conscious Luck, which is
Oh,
about the idea that there are people who believe they're some lucky people, and some people believe that they're unlucky, and that it's just by chance. And her whole book's about conscious thinking around topics like luck. And so what's happening for me is that everything's being woven into what's going on now. Like, I'm really more aware of even my podcast interviews, even the coaching conversations, because clients are thinking, can I write this now? Can I say this? Will this land the same way? And I have to help them dig deeper and say, well, what does it mean to you to think this way? So
mm,
everything seems to do that. Every conversation, even with my mom, who's only just a few kilometers down the road, I can't see. And
mm,
so I moved back to this small town to be here near here, and it's making me think of how grateful I am to be able to just call her and hear her voice. So for me, the work with my clients, the work that I do in my daily life, has allowed me to just be more present with each situation. We always toast the sunset. That's been part of our practice, Steve and I, to just cheers. What are we grateful for today? But it's
oh,
maybe even making me like want to toast my coffee and toast this glass of water. Like I'm so grateful for this moment.
I
And I
love
think
that.
that's the thing I'm trying to do also with my clients, like just lean into
Yeah.
this uncomfortable space like you would in yoga. Like, oh, this is tight. It doesn't feel good. I'm like, this is the time to breathe.
Mm. Yeah, I really love that. I love that. It's just what a beautiful tradition to
Yeah,
incorporate into your everyday life.
absolutely. And I think that has helped me. I had a particular author, and this is how it really weaves into the work. So because we help authors, really particularly leaders, write books that people love, these are people who are, I mean, I think the term would be thought leader, but the truth is a leader is someone who is reluctant to do their thing, but they know they're called to. That's really what, to me, a leader is.
Mm.
And one particular leader is writing a book about practicing death. Like, he had a near-death experience several years ago, and it made him realize he wasn't living, and he wanted to write a book about his experience to help people. And this is before the pandemic hit. And I said, isn't this ironic and or beautiful that you're writing a book about being present in the life you have in the midst of this all? Because he's in the middle of Manhattan, one of the most devastating epicenters, and he
Yeah.
can't go outside. And I thought, wow, this is the purpose of our work, is to reflect on this meaningful thing that you're doing. And I find it so, I'm trying to be as positive as I can, because what else? I have two choices: be positive or negative, and I just try to find the good in all of it somehow.
Yeah. So what's that like for you where you are at the moment? Like you're in Austin. Um,
Yes.
what is it actually like on the ground in Austin at the moment?
Right. So when we returned, it was like the 6th of March, which is now what are we, week 5, 6? That we found out they canceled a major event here that's called South by Southwest. There's 30 or 40,000 people that descend here from all over the world
Yeah.
to have this conference, and they shut it down. That's when we knew something really big's happening. I think the rest of the world was thinking that seems like a little premature. Like, what are you doing? But we started not only social distancing then, but we started really staying in. So we're
Mm,
on like the 6th week of this practice. So we're
mm,
well aware of that. So for us here in this Austin area, we've been doing it for a while. The greater area of Texas, they're a little more resistant. I mean, Texas tends to have the attitude of we'll do it our way. So you get
oh, yeah.
mixed messages when you go out. Some people are wearing masks and very thoughtful, and other people are just being kind of renegades, which is kind of that sort of spirit they have here. But what we're realizing is so few people are out. If they are, they're walking for exercise just to get fresh air. I think for the most part, people are doing their part, even though there are a few people that are sort of the outliers. I feel like it has caused a little bit of tension. When you see people on the street, they don't smile as big as they used to. They're a little bit tentative to even make eye contact, which is a little odd.
Mm. Yeah, it
Um,
is odd. It is. It's a fear
and it,
response, really, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it really is. Like, as if even by looking and smiling, that might cause some
Well,
tension.
yeah, you might catch the disease if you smile at somebody.
Yeah, I just, it's like a new way of being. So I'm finding actually these online communities events, like doing something like this, super valuable. because
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
where I get my connection every day. If I don't do this, where am I going to get that?
That's exactly right. And do you know what I've noticed? Well, because I just started a new job, my first full-time job in 25 years.
Wow.
So I know. And that came about because as a freelancer, I was struggling a little bit after the bushfires. And I
Yeah.
just went, you know what? I need the money. I really need to find something. This is what I want. I want something in innovation, something with a small team that's doing really great things in the world. And this job just ticked all my boxes. So I was so happy. And that started on March 4th.
Wow.
And I know. Crazy. So I went from I immediately got thrust into an office and then all of a sudden had to work from home again within like 2
Right.
weeks. Because I
Wow.
was also battling a respiratory illness at the time and we
Mm.
didn't know what it was at the time. It wasn't
Wow.
COVID-19, thank God.
Yeah.
But I did get tested and yeah, it was crazy, stressful, surreal time. But what I've noticed is that doing the whole online team meeting thing and even having like we have this afternoon, we've got wind down time with my team,
That's great.
which is awesome. And we've been like playing games online and doing stuff, crazy stuff like that. And I've actually found that it's created a sense of intimacy that I might not have gotten in the office setting. That's my theory. What do you
Mm.
think about that?
Well, because all of the work I do is virtual, that's what I try to do with my teams. I coach mainly authors, but I lead a team of people for our company, for our organization, and I also coach a group of creatives, which means they're screenwriters, they're actors, they're comedians in New York and LA, and we meet once a week. And the thing about that is just this community you create with being present. I always make them start with, hey, we're going to share a good thing that's happened since the last time we saw each other. And it forces them to be in the mindset there are plenty of good things. Even if someone said, the good thing is I was able to drink the full glass of water when I got up in the morning, which I never do. And like whatever it is, we try to spend time connecting and realizing that we're human in all this. The thing that hasn't changed is we're human.
Mm.
And so for me, I've been even more vulnerable in times where normally I'd be more reserved because I realize this might be the only interaction we get to have. I'm usually more reserved online because it seems virtual. It's not as tender. I don't know what the word would be,
Yeah.
but now I'm realizing this might be my only interaction, the chance to be vulnerable. So with my coaching group today, I coach a bunch of writers as well. I was like, look, I'm struggling with my writing. I don't know about you, but I feel like I just don't want to write. I'm feeling it in my head. I'm doubting myself. And I was like, normally I would just be the inspirer, but today I was just vulnerable. Like I'm struggling. So I think for that, like the opportunity, like you described, like just being more connected, because I think we realize that how fragile our humanity really is, and we better utilize it while we can.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I found the same thing. Like I found that I'm probably opening up a lot more, maybe too much sometimes about things, you know. And I don't have any difficulty doing that. I actually feel quite a release. And even just the ability, we're on Microsoft Teams, and even just the ability to send someone a little note when you notice they're a bit flat in a meeting and just
Yeah.
say, hey, if you need to chat, just pick up the phone. Really,
Right.
I noticed you weren't feeling your best, and just noticing those things about people that maybe we might gloss over in normal life, I think can just add to our humanity and add to our sense of connection. So,
That's right.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Agree.
okay, so we're adjusting to the new normal at the moment. I love it how everyone calls it the new normal. It's like, what is
Right.
normal anyway?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. What do you envisage that you will take from this experience into future you beyond the pandemic?
I had struggled in the past with being confident about doing things like marketing, which essentially is telling people about what you do,
Mm,
why you help them. And with that notion is that maybe perhaps you're not worthy, it's not as good as other people's products or services. And what I'm leaning into this is that I might be able to help somebody tell their story write their book that might otherwise not. And I'm realizing that I'm shifting some of the terms we use online, marketing, all these funnels, and that's really not the way I think. I think of people and I think of their message. And so I'm giving myself permission to realize I'm a really great marketer because I care a lot about people and their stories. I'm really great at selling because by selling, I'm serving them. So I'm just using this time to shift my thinking. So whatever happens in the future, I will be set for success, and not because I'm waiting to see what happens, but because I can serve right now. I can give people an opportunity to do something. And for me, that has been really hard. It's humbling. I don't know about you. I'm a bit embarrassed by my success, which seems sort of ridiculous, but I'm embarrassed when people talk to me about my TED Talk or talk to me about the people I've worked with. I kind of tend to shy away. And I realize that does a disservice to people who are looking for a great coach, looking for somebody to help them right. If I shrink back and let other people who are maybe not as, I wouldn't say legitimate, meaning I'm more legitimate, but who may be out for less purposeful intent. Maybe they're out for more to gain money. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I know that I serve a certain clientele. And if I don't show up, I can't serve them. So for me, I'm trying to reset that programming now so that I don't set myself into a negative space when whatever happens. It was interesting. I was talking to Natalie Sisson, who is the author of the book Suitcase Entrepreneur. She's out of New Zealand. Her and I coached her a little bit on her new book that's coming out, and she asked me to come work with her. She teaches writers, so it's not like she needs my help, but we were just working through some things in her book and her learning my process. And I was talking to her writers, and what I realized is there's so many people with beautiful stories just like yours who should be sharing it. And that small voice in their head that says, will this matter? What if it's no good?
Yeah.
What if I don't finish? And I realized what my superpower is getting them to believe in themselves so they do finish, so they do know it's good. And it's not okay for me to shrink back in these times or any time. But for now, for me, I'm realizing, what if that wonderful woman who was in retirement didn't write that memoir to share with her children about her life, and then tomorrow's over and she's not here? Like, I will feel like I didn't do the service. So for me, that's the shift I'm making.
Yeah, I think that's a really salient point too, because I think it's classic imposter syndrome, right? Where we get very uncomfortable with our comfort zone being shifted a notch up. And I totally get it, because I've started this podcast, and I've started other podcasts before, but I've I finished them, and then this is new, and all the little voices in my head are going off about, oh, is this going to be good enough? Is this, doing it differently like this through lives? Is that going to work? What if it fails? What if I land on my face? All those questions come up, and it creates a level of internal anxiety that I've not experienced before.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And the biggest thing is, I think you're right. I think it's that what I've really gotten for myself is that it's giving people a chance to voice what's actually happening for them at the moment, and get them focused on what is really important. And it is a service. That's how I see it. I see it as a service to people. So I love that you've put it that way.
Yeah,
so
that's my word for this year, is service.
I think that's an awesome word for this year. I don't know if I picked a word for this year, but I think if I was going to pick a word, it would probably be audacious.
Oh, I like that word. Good job.
Because I'm trying to step out of my, comfort zone a little bit. I've been hiding a little bit the last couple of years, and decided that, no, it's time just to kind of step up and go, I can be audacious and awesome and create beautiful things for people. So,
that's right.
Yeah, I'm going to clear my throat a little bit, but
sure.
Sorry. So tell me, how are your authors doing? Are they really struggling with putting stuff down on a page? I know I am, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So here's an exact call that happened today. We had an author sort of like call today, and I said, "What are you working on? What are you struggling with? How can I help?" And an author said, "Look, I feel like when I started my book, I was this version of myself 1.0. And that was only a month ago, but now I feel like I'm version 5.0. And I'm not even sure that what I was talking about then is even relevant now. And I'm not sure what to do. I show up to write and I feel like, should I be writing this? What's the point? And so I'm not writing. And the thing that I observed with authors is that they forget that you can make deep meaning through the writing process. It's not the content that is valuable for the author, it's the process of sharing what's in you. So I said, you know what? She has a word count goal. Some people have 500 words, some people have 1,000 words, whatever it is. I said, what I want you to do is when you start feeling like, I don't feel like writing, this is not good, I don't want to do this, is I want you to write that instead of thinking it. And you write, this is terrible, this is the worst idea, I suck, what's for lunch, I don't know what to do, you know, how do my eyes look, I look droopy, whatever is in your brain, you write that. Write about that, and then you count those words as your goal. I wrote 500 words of nonsense about how I'm feeling, because the cathartic event that happens when you produce what's in your mind frees this so-called funnel that fills the book with other things. If you try to write what's in your head and it's mixed with those thoughts plus the thoughts of your book, you'll just resist. So writer's block isn't having too little to say, it's having too much. So the best way to unblock it is just write whatever's going on. Now, there won't be that many days that you read what you wrote saying, oh my, I'm sort of like a nutcase here, I'm saying everything else that's wrong. And then eventually that funnel gets broken free and you can return to the thing you're writing about. But don't pretend that you don't have anything in your head. Otherwise, the words aren't vulnerable, they're not honest, they're not true. And then you have to scrap them anyway. So might as well write what's really going on, because then you get that catharsis that comes from showing up for yourself on a page.
Yeah, I love that. And that's really helpful, actually, because I think I've been struggling with something similar. Not, this is no good. It's more, I don't know, it's more just like, is this too serious? Is this too heavy? And just sort of questioning, the whole approach to it. And so, but I think that's another conversation for another time.
Well, and that's exactly what you're doing, is you're judging the process at the end when you're stuck in the middle. And so the hardest part is to unclog that block, which is my thinking is getting in the way of my writing. And if your thinking is getting in the way, then just think on the page. Half of my first book was all about, this is the worst idea I've ever had. Who's going to write this? I should stop this. What are the kids doing? Why are they screaming back there while I'm trying to write? Like, it had nothing to do with the book. And I had to cut it all out and realize, wow, that's a lot of words that didn't matter. But the truth was, those words helped me free myself from my doubt. Because I don't know about in the areas where everyone else is, but according to New York Times, in America, 81% of the population said that they have a book inside of them. That's a huge percentage, but only 3% ever actually finish a manuscript. So such a small percentage to ever get through that block, which is this good? Does it matter? Is it too heavy? Is it too dark? Is it too vulnerable? What will my mom think? Even if you finish a manuscript, only 30% of that 3% ever actually hit publish. So now we're talking 0.3% ever publish, because of the things we're talking about, not their ability to write, not that they have a good idea, but these doubts. And so if you can think out these doubts, you can actually push through that barrier that keeps most people from writing what they really want to say.
Yeah, that's a really, really awesome piece of advice. Wow. So what's next for you, Azul, out of all of this?
Yeah.
What's next on your agenda?
I have a couple of things on my agenda. One is, I was really honest with my group today that I have to work on my book, because I'm not lacking time. I have lots of time, right? I have work day, but I have time to do my book. So that's next. My book is called What Makes a Good Teacher Great. It's very unrelated to my coaching work, but it's a book that I care about, I'm passionate about. So that book's done, or at least it's in its editing stage. I have to go back and rework it. And then I'm really trying to launch an opportunity for people who want to write books in a cohort of group. There's something about that camaraderie of working together, like you commiserate with the fact that we're all in this thing together. And that kind of program can be really useful, because when you start to get down or discouraged or realize that it's hard, you can relate to other people. Most other people can't relate to what it feels like to be a crazy author, which is, this is hard. And so I want to encourage people to feel empowered, because once you can say the words to yourself like you can, I'm an author, it changes your perspective of the world. It changes the way even other people see you. And I think that's the next thing on my horizon, helping cohorts of people go through this together, and really find community in that work. Because I'm trying to cultivate leaders, not just writers. I'm not
Mm,
just trying to see people see if they can publish a book. I'm trying to say, and now what? And so what? So the book is just the beginning of the conversation.
mm,
It's not the end. It is the purpose to say, okay, I've been talking about this thing. Let's do something about it now. What can you do? What can I do
yeah.
about this thing I'm thinking about? So I think I'm building more focused on community and authorship than I was before in the last year or two.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure. So, is that community open to authors now, or is that something you're launching in the future?
Yeah, something I'm launching in the future. I did have an online group on Facebook that's called Born to Write when I had that podcast called that, and people joined this challenge, and so there's several hundred people in that community. But what I really want to do is call people to higher purposes, which is don't just linger here, let's do. So I'm building a new community. Actually, I was just talking to the founder of something called circle.so, started by a bunch of people from Teachable, and they wanted to build community into a platform. And so I'm working to try to figure out how do I build community in the author world so that people are part of different levels. Some people are just starting. You know, it's okay to be the rising star and not know exactly where you're going with this, because that's how I started. I didn't know what I
Mm,
would do. I was a school teacher. I didn't know that I'd become this founder and this leader. So I want to serve rising stars as well as the people who are movement makers, who have an audience, the Pat Flynn's of the world, the people who have a community and are trying to grow it even further. So I want to serve both ends, but I don't want to leave anybody out. So that's the purpose of the community, so that they can begin to serve each other as they grow into this other leader they're becoming.
yeah, no, I really love that. Well, make sure you let me know when that
Yeah,
launches because I'm in. I definitely want in for that one.
awesome. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote my first book, I felt quite alone in the process. It's a learning curve when you first write and promote a book and get it on Amazon. And yes, it got to number one in its category for like maybe 5 minutes. And,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
It happened.
and I invested heavily for that to make that happen.
Right.
And I felt like it deserved it. It's had great reviews. But now that book is a few years old,
Mhm.
and life has changed, technology has changed, and
Right.
I could look at rewriting it, or I could just move on to my next book. And I would love
Hmm.
to do that with a community of writers. Like it makes such a difference having that support network, and you can support each other with your launches as well, learn from each other through the ups and downs of the process, and the pain of it, because I found it a bit like giving birth. It was quite
Right.
painful. And then when it was launched, there was this like euphoric experience. And then since then, it's been an interesting ride because I think I expected that writing a book would launch me into the community as a speaker. And
Right.
like I had to do nothing else to make that happen.
Right. Well,
I'm laughing because it's so stupid to think like that.
no, it's so, but that's the thing, is you don't know. How do you know? People ask me all the time, how do you get a TED Talk? Did you get invited? Did you apply? How did you know what to say? I'm like, oh, this is I remember thinking this, several years ago, having no idea, thinking I wish that could be me, but like, why would they ask me? So like,
Yeah.
even in that community, I want to be able to offer things like, how do we structure and build a TED Talk, or
Mm,
things like, how do I get paid for my speech based on my book, which I've
mm,
been able to do based on a TED Talk. That's why I know the book's valid. I validated a book, give a TED Talk first, write the book second, which is not necessarily the way most people do it. But all those things, all those lessons learned, we should, codify those in a community so people can learn from each other. Well, what's the
yeah.
best way to get featured in these big magazines? How do you land big guests on your podcast? How do you get on podcasts? Like, if you have a whole resource, a place for authors to show up and get that, they'll just stay there and feed it and continue to serve each other as we continue to great content. What if I want to relaunch my book? What would I do? What would I do if I want to do an audible book or audio version of my book? How would that
Mm,
look? What about foreign rights? Like, if you have all these wonderful modules that are really simple and clear, authors will come together and just serve each other. And then what they don't know, I can teach. So that's the valuable, I think, of a community that I didn't have when I was doing it. Just like you, I was like, I'm number one. Now what?
Yeah. That's awesome. I can't wait. So please keep me informed of that. So
Awesome.
I want to wrap up by asking you, what do you think is your secret to success? Like, what if you could nail it down to one thing? What would it be?
I would say it's creative non-compliance, which
Mm,
means I'm willing to bend or break the rules for the greater good, which is another topic of one of my books. Because Deborah Meyer, who's a great educator here in the U.S., says sometimes rules and things are put in place to kind of keep the status quo, which is safe, but you can't keep the status quo forever because you don't have innovation and change. So in my life, my success has been this is what's supposed to happen, but what if I bend or broke the rules? What would happen?
mm,
Um, and so my success has been what if I start by coaching someone like Pat Flynn or someone big at the very top as my first client and work my way down?
mm.
Um, instead of starting with the reverse, like I'll build a little course and I work my way up. I just think that that non-compliance part of me has contributed a lot in my success, as well as being genuine and honest and willing to learn and not ever think I'm better than anyone else. I always think that, you know what, I'm just a few step away from being totally back where I started, and I'm okay with that.
You know
Uh,
what? We all are. We all are. I don't care who you are. Like, I mean, if anything, this whole crisis has shown us is that
yeah,
fortunes can reverse in a nanosecond.
that's
And
right.
we go, what just happened? Like, we
Yeah,
all are.
that's
Yeah.
right. And when we met, you and I, and Cebu, Philippines, one of the people that I met and became good friends with was Jordan Harbinger. He's one of the speakers there, and the thing I learned from him is how valuable your network is. Because let's imagine that I couldn't write books anymore, or that this book writing business didn't go well. I've spent more of my time nurturing and caring about the people in my network than I have about the money I make. So I
Mm,
could have made a lot more money by now, but what I choose to do is make a lot more investment in the people I care about. So that if I need help or I want to get advice, it's just a text away, and that my most valuable resource is the other human beings in my life, not the money in my bank account.
yeah, that is just gold. And I couldn't agree with you more about that. Jordan is an awesome guy. I think he's still on sabbatical at the moment. They just had a baby.
Hmm.
And in fact, he was indirectly responsible for me meeting my current partner, which I had no idea about, which is so funny.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's, he's a great guy. And I, I think that's just golden, absolutely golden, because I think you're right. When we focus on the money and not the people, um, we're just not as successful. I think I've experienced that in life, and I think that a lot of people probably have. So that right there, is just it's just beautiful. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
That's such
And
a
I
pleasure.
I want to acknowledge you, Azul, for being one of the first guests on my show. Like, you knew nothing about the show. And I hit you up and I said, "Hey, Azul, I'd really love to have you on the show." And you said yes. And so I want to acknowledge you for saying yes, and
Yeah,
acknowledge you for doing that late at night too, because I believe it's like 9:30 at night there now.
that's right.
Um, and for making yourself available. Like, it's just been amazing, and I'm going to be sharing this far and wide because I want lots and lots of people to gain the value out of what you've shared today. It's been incredible.
Thank
And
you
I
so
want
much.
to acknowledge you and Steve for your sunset toasts. I think that's such an awesome idea. I'm going to
It's
steal that
great.
one. And say hello to Steve from me as well, please.
Of course, I will.
And just acknowledge you for being the wonderful, caring human being that you are, because I think that, to me, I look at you and I think, wow, I think your success really comes from that. Like, the heart of your success is that you really just deeply care about people. And that
That's right.
really shows. Yeah.
Thank you. I I learned that from the 24 years of teaching students that that's the most valuable thing. That the only thing that actually is real is love, and that's the only reason I kept showing up every day. It wasn't because I was a great teacher. So that's a gift from them to you.
Beautiful. I love it. On that note, I'm going to wrap up the live. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've joined us, I can't see you because I'm on Be Live and not on Facebook, and I will check afterwards for any comments. What I find is most people tune in afterwards anyway. So, yeah, and I've really enjoyed this whole process. It's really totally thrown me out of my comfort zone, but I'm really loving it and having wonderful conversations with people like yourself, Azul. So just before we wrap up, though, where can people find you online?
Yeah, they can go to authorswholead.com, and I also have a podcast where we interview wonderful authors like James Schramiko, Chris Ducker, all these wonderful people we probably know in common, to hear about what they do behind the scenes to write their books. So authorswholead.com is where you can find both those things.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm going to wrap up now.
Thank you.